you're running for the Commissioner of Agriculture in the state of Georgia, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is the universe happening. And I was reading about you, and there's so much about your story, but you have this innate love for plants and agriculture, and you're interested in it. So it's almost,
Yes.
I love this time. So I ran for office in 2020 for the House in Utah,
Yes.
super red. I'm red, white, and
Yeah.
blue, so I'm
Me.
good. But there are different clusters where we have very different thoughts. I happen to grow up in one of those clusters where I have some different thoughts. But it's really brave to do. And to do it with your passion, I did it for a voice and got to start talking about change. And you ran for House too, which I can't wait to talk about.
Yes.
Um, but the universe. So let's talk about the universe planting you to where you're going to run. You are running for on the Democratic ticket,
Yes.
Commissioner of Agriculture, and it's historic in many ways. So give us the whole lowdown.
So here's the lowdown. My ancestors came to this country as slaves, and they became rice farmers in coastal Georgia and South Carolina. And so, in many ways, my resume for this position was being created before I was even a thought. For me, I was fortunate enough to grow up here in the metro Atlanta area, but every summer, my single parent, so every summer, the day school got out, she sent my siblings and I to South Georgia, and we stayed there until the day before school. So, in many ways, I got to really understand what life was like for people in the metro Atlanta area, but also in the rural parts of Georgia. And in many ways, this for me is full circle. I have a very strong background in real estate. I studied real estate at Georgia State University. Very passionate about land use rights, and I'm a capitalist at heart. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and just loving farming. It's so funny because we often critique our parents as kids growing up, watching every little thing they do, especially for me, my grandparents, and thinking, oh, you're so weird, you're strange. I remember
Right.
my mother and her mother having conversations about herbs for 2 and 3 hours. And this chest behind me,
Yeah.
that is my seed collection. I have over 500 different varieties of seeds. So this is my seed vault.
Of
And
flowers?
yeah, well, all different types of things, flowers, rare types of plants, definitely vegetables. So yeah, we're cut flower farmers, but I love all things agriculture.
I love this story, um, mainly because there's this deconstruction of our society, which you're well aware of, and our politics. Like it's finally time for the people with passion to run their passions, and in your case, agriculture. So,
Yeah.
tell me how that transition from your ancestors or your family coming over as slaves, working in the rice fields, were they people who obtained land from their owners?
So, wow. So it's I'm still learning my story. And what I do know is that my grandmother's great grandfather is mulatto. He was father, of course, slave and a slave owner. Mr. Tyson, actually, we're not sure which kid it is. We're still learning this, but
Right?
Commander, oh gosh, Commander Tyson. I'll just
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, you
he
don't have
was
to
a
be
command.
exact.
Yes, he was commander in the Civil War and one of the largest landowners in South Carolina, owning over 10,000 acres. And my grandmother's great grandfather inherited that farm. And if you look it up, the farm, unfortunately, there's a lot of history there, but it is now known as the Turnbridge Plantation. And the current owner is actually credited with restarting the type of rice my family would grow, which is Carolina Gold rice.
That
So
is
there's this tremendous history um, that is a part of my story as it relates to Georgia agriculture, being African American, and then where we are today. There's something crazy unique about that, and I will tell you something. What's weird is I'm Democrat. My husband is a white Republican farmer from Central Illinois.
love. Yes.
So when you talk about, just really America being a melting pot, I can't think of, that story being more true than my personal story.
Well, I got chills when you said it was Turning Point Plantation or Turning Bridge Plantation?
Turn bridge,
Turn
yes.
Bridge. When you said they were going to plant that rice, it just gave me chills because what I love that's happening about our history is truth. Like we're talking
Yes.
about it. This is part of our history, and uh, African Americans, Black people that were brought here, they weren't African Americans when they got here, um, were a huge piece of why it all worked. And I don't think,
Yeah.
we like to tell the story of the farmers, but the workers are what made it happen. And then some of those farmers knew it, and it sounds like maybe Commander Tyson was one of them, and, were able to share. And those are the stories that I think are really beautiful within it, within such a horrible time. But that's amazing. Your history going
Thank
back
you.
that far, and then here you are, like destined to run this. I looked at the your primary, and you gave that guy a run for his
Yes.
money. I mean,
Yes.
it's coming. This is a real battle, and having run for the House like I did last year in a very white male dominated state that's so conservative, um, people find their zip codes, and that's what that zip code is. You're breaking barriers, you are crushing ceilings, and you're bringing passion to politics, which, I'm not male, female, objective. Like there's room for both of us. We need both of us at a table.
Great.
And but to have, like, I'm very much a supporter of cannabis, very much into plant medicine. I believe the earth can heal us if we listen. And to have females running for this type of office just feels like putting it in the right hands.
Yes, I agree. Globally, women really dominate the agricultural space, especially in third world countries, and that's not often talked about. In the state of Georgia, 34% of the farms are managed by women, but we hold less than 1% of leadership positions. So our role as women in this space is not unique or new, it's just undervalued. And to state that you're not, to paint a picture of being neutral where there is an opportunity for both female, I 1000% agree. And for me, running in this seat is really about how can I take the talents and the life experiences that I have to create the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people, and having real conversations and providing solution where everyone gets to be an active participant in their success, regardless of the size of your farm, your demographics going into this space, and the challenges you face. So I think sometimes when we can take our blinders off, be that partisan blinders or demographic blinders or socioeconomic blinders, and just simply invest in doing the will of the people and, looking to really solve the problems, I think we will move society forward. And I believe that is what the hour is commanding of us. So.
That's very wise because, the fight hasn't been to win anything for any area of inequality that has existed in our country. It's to be heard, it's to be brought to the table, it's to have an equal voice in the things that we're doing. And that's what I found. I want to talk about your run for District 104 in Georgia in 2020. That was also my COVID project, District 21, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to come into, running for House, having a different voice, going against it, you're not looking, I was looking to start different conversations. Like, different people belong at this table. Different people need to vote. Like, we vote. Well, don't get me started. It's just this interesting, you have to have money, and, how do we learn about people like you if we can't get you to the limelight within, the structure that exists for us currently for politics. And, that's why I'm red, white, and blue. I'm not sure where I sit. I sit with sensibility, equality. I don't, think that there should be 34% of people doing something and holding 1% of leadership. It just doesn't make sense. So we're leveling the playing field. And that's why you are the first African-American woman to run for Commissioner of Agriculture in Georgia. Is that true?
Yes, that is correct.
And part of your platform is regarding hunger and how many people within your state are actually hungry, and your state has rich agriculture. It's an interesting connection.
Yes. So 1.7 million, this is pre-COVID numbers, we're facing hunger in the state. Right now, we are all dealing with issues around supply chain shortages. In the state of Georgia, agriculture is the number one industry. It contributes about $70 billion to our economy annually. However, 80% of the food we consume in the state of Georgia is imported. So what that says is that farmers all over the world are more profitable in the state of Georgia than Georgia farmers. We have places in metro Atlanta area with populations over 100,000 people in their food deserts. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. So this department has the ability to change that narrative, not only create economic opportunities for farmers, but also solve issues around food insecurity. So education, opportunity, and resources are three pillars of our campaign. We're very, very much focused on how do we take the problems that we know are facing here in the state of Georgia and not only make it a win for people who are dealing with hunger, but also win for the local producers. And that also includes manufactured foods as well.
Say that part about how much food. That was really interesting when you talked about the amount of food that comes into Georgia that you import versus grow yourself. Every state's doing this, right? I mean, is it coming from our own country?
So 80% of the food is imported. Not all of it's coming from our own country. For domestic imports, California has the lion's share of that. What's interesting is that Georgia has many of the same growing zones as the state of California does. Our growing zones start from 7 all the way down to, I believe, 8B, almost 9. So we have the ability to grow crops year round. But historically, the Department of Agriculture has really focused more on larger, more corporate farms and in particular niches. Like Georgia's number one in terms of broilers, which are chicken production. Blueberries were globally a leader in the production of blueberries.
I know that. I keep thinking peaches.
Yes. Here's interesting. South Carolina produces more peaches than the state of Georgia.
How did that happen? Right?
I know, we're the peach state, right? So this office touches on so many aspects of individuals' lives in the state of Georgia, and the education around what can be done to make life better, the quality of life better for the citizens of the state has not existed in an impactful way. And so there's so much to unfold here. But there's so many opportunities in which we can actually really impact Georgia for the good and move our state forward. So.
How much bureaucracy do you think is tied between your vision and the current system? Like, do you think there's just piles of paperwork to go through and amend? Or is Georgia a state where they kind of like, you know, get through the maze pretty leniently? You know, they kind of flex when they need to flex, juke when they need to juke. What do you think?
So, from my experience as a farmer, the biggest challenges we have in the state is land use rights, and really exploring what that could look like and the commerce that could exist around agriculture. And current legislation in the state of Georgia does not go far enough to protect the rights of private landowners and also farmers. In fact, HOAs have the greatest amount of power to disenfranchise voters and landowners and actually violate many of their rights without repercussion. So, to answer your question, this is a constitutional seat. That's the beautiful part about the elected official. Um, However, much of what we need to get done on the legislative level, we have to work with, the General Assembly, and right now it is Republican held, both branches, the Senate and the House. So that will be a challenge. But there are duties and powers within this position to where it's you can navigate through those challenges and still bring about some of the change that is needed. But to say that bureaucracy and the legislative component doesn't impact the seat or impact decisions that are made in the seat, that would be an understatement. One of the things I tell voters is that politics is a team sport. And it's not about one person, it's about the team. And no matter how strongly you feel about the victory at the top of the ballot, it's really the victory all the way down the ballot. And if you don't have a quality team, you cannot get quality results. If we don't elect a Democratic governor, we can't have a Democratic lieutenant governor. It's just not going to work. This position is very much similar to that. There are some nuances that will give us more power, but we really need a strong Democratic ballot here in the state of Georgia. I know without question that I am the best candidate for this seat. I have some innovative ideas about how we can build the economy here and just make life better.
And for folks in Georgia, the idea, we talk about change no matter what our state is. We want change. Wouldn't it be great if this or that and this? And then we do worry about the top of the ballot. Who's running for president? That's important. But what affects us day to day is that zip code that we live within.
Yes.
Are they voting to dump nuclear waste in Utah? Yes. But you've got to those are the things that affect me day to day. And to run and sign up for what you're signing up for, the reason people complain is because we have built bureaucracy on top of bureaucracy, and we live in a very untangled world, very direct connections. We can see things, we do things easier. To even raise your hand to go in and take on this type of job, Nakita, and the voters should know this, is knowing what you're walking into. You could be walking into a tied system that takes 6 months even to know what thread to pull. But you're right. It's not a political issue. We need a balance in every state and the right person in the job. And that's the visionary. We are held to a 250-year-old constitution, and we are, dealing with iPhones. I don't think George Washington ever thought we'd be iPhoning, And that
right.
Samsung would be a second class, by the way, of which I am a Samsung. But, maybe that should be the political parties. Do you have an iPhone or do you have a Samsung? I'd never win.
I agree. Yes. So one of the things about being married to a Republican, has a very strong conservative background. It's it's taught me a very valuable lesson about life leadership, which is we should often strive to lead from a position of understanding. You may not agree with the other side, you may not connect with the other side, but I believe that the way we become world changers and the way that we actually bring more unity in our nation is by starting from a place of seeking understanding and being willing to listen before having a solution. And we need that enough. So that is something that I'm challenging myself to do in this race, and making sure that if there's anyone who wants to talk to me about any issue, you know, being there to hear it, but also letting the constituency groups, the state, know that this is not about partisanship. This is about us, you know. And the one lesson we all should have learned from COVID-19 is that all of our lives are connected. We're rooted in this together. So we should never take victory in someone else's failure. Like how we can get the goal line together, because the reality is not every person wants the same thing. So there's room for everyone.
That's what makes our country so great. We're
Agreed.
only 250 years into this idea that we can all live in peace equally.
Yeah.
You know, we're getting there. But it takes a minute. What I love about part of what I think gives you real, like a lot of credibility for this role is you applied for a special use land permit to open your own cut flower farm and bed and breakfast, right? And
Yes.
then there were some roadblocks that you hit, and you navigate them within your state. Whether you want to go through some of the things you learned about that inspired you to start saying, you know what, I can make a difference. I understand this. Or, you know, how great it was once you got there. But did that help pave the way for this run?
Absolutely. Actually, it paved the way for 2020. We were in a meeting with our attorney on our farm, and this is after the regulations had already been passed, and the county commissioner for my district stood on my farm and told me that I would be better off selling my land to Quick Trip than trying to convince him to roll back some of these regulations. That's where we were in 2021. And she literally said to me, you could sue, you have a case, and you'd win, and you'd be broke at the end, because they have taxpayer dollars and they will just outspend you in court, or you could run for office. And that was the beginning of my journey to become more intimate with the laws of Georgia and understanding just how disenfranchised we were within this state, where we cannot hold bad actors within our system who use their powers for personal gain. We can't hold them accountable, and no one wins with that. You know, we set up 3 branches of government. Our forefathers did, with the intent of having a checks and balance. And right now we're, on the fringes of a rogue state, both nationally and statewide here in Georgia. I mean, gosh, every week we're in the headlines about something new that's going on here. So I've always been a fighter, and I always believe that you have to be an active participant in your own success. And for me, it was it's the legacy I want to set for my children. Because at the end of the day, no matter what obstacles come their way, I want them to know, as long as you're fighting, you're still in it. Don't quit. Life's not going to be perfect, but continue to fight. So it's what my children see. That is kind of what inspires me.
I get that. We really are. We talk about making the world a better place for our children, and then there are those folks within the system still making those decisions. And if I hadn't run for office, I would not have known that not only it goes all the way through. It's
Yes.
so important that anyone listening that wonders or has a complaint about their zip code or sees a better path, start getting involved, because that's the movement. That very, just like having that conversation is the movement within your neighborhood, your school, your zip code. And then, if you can get bigger movements like Nakita, you wind up, jumping into a heavy office. Like, that's a big deal. How is the voter suppression in Georgia? Do you think that there's been movement there? Because I know that was a big part of the news in whatever year, 1919, 2020.
Yes.
1919.
So it's very complex. The issues that we're dealing with in the state are not all visible. There are challenges in every aspect of the election process that are not being discussed. And it's unfortunate because the powers that be know that these challenges exist, yet they want the narrative to talking points they can control. Or let's turn over this rock because it's more attractive, it will get more media attention versus the challenges that really do exist. So voter suppression is real here in Georgia. It's real all over our country. We still have a long way to go.
Yeah, and when you're not in Utah, we don't talk about voter suppression. In the states where you hear and you wonder what it is, because again, it took me to run for office to start really learning about these terms and how it works. It's complicated, it is complex, and it's worth every one of us learning about it. Every single one of us learning about it in every single state. And how do we do it? Because it's ambiguous. You almost can't find the right place that it happens. So it's going to take every single one of us to make that equal in states for reasons that were too complicated to explain, but really don't matter because everyone should vote.
Agree. Completely agree. In the state of Georgia, we have 159 counties. So not only do we have legislation that governs our statewide elections, but each county has their own separate rules. So good luck being a candidate navigating 159 different counties where voter fraud, is an issue or election fraud is an issue. It's a mess. There was a candidate, Daniel Blackman, who ran for public safety commissioner. He actually wasn't in that was around the same time Warnock's and Ossoff's runoff, and his name was left off the ballot in several counties. And he ultimately lost his race by 40,000 votes. So it is very, very, very complicated. It is a web in which we need to be proactive and we need to be relentless in solving these issues. And our nation needs to step up. Passing that John Lewis voting rights bill is going to be very, very important. There's so many things that need to be done in this space.
Yeah, and it seems counterintuitive to everything that we as a country stand for. But when you say nation, I don't think of our government, I think of us. These hashtag moments that we do find each other, we make connections across this electronic universe, and through that we have power.
Agreed.
Hashtag Me Too, hashtag Black Lives Matter. These are all real movements that happened because we found like-minded people and strength there. So hashtag Let's Let Everyone Vote.
Yeah,
it's a real thing.
Love it.
Yeah.
Hashtag every vote counts.
Every vote counts, right. And it matters, and it should be, and sure. I'm sure there's lots of things that can happen 150 million times, but we have technology and there's revolutionary things to be done there. I want to ask you
Agree.
about cannabis because I have found cannabis to be quite a medicine. Cannabis agriculturally, for those who might not know, has so many uses. It grows like a weed when you think of hemp, um, fabrics, petrochemicals, pharmaceuticals, concrete. Hempcrete is 10 times stronger than concrete. We could go on and on about the beauty of this plant and the many uses that it has. I think we're focused as a country right now on whether or not it's used as a medicine. We already know it is. People are making their own decisions as U.S. citizens. But as it pertains to so many different industries in our country, I mean, it's deep what this plant can do. How do you, is
Yeah.
there a plan for that within Georgia, or how do you view, where is Georgia on the cannabis front for cannabis as a medicine?
So Georgia has legalized it. Licenses are required for production for there are THC limits, point 0.3, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And a producer cannot, process it, nor can they sell it. So every aspect of the supply chain as it relates to cannabis from seed to,
Sale.
placed in consumers' hands, it's broken up into pieces. One of the things I want to do is fully legalize cannabis. As you mentioned, cannabis has many uses. In fact, there are 25,000 uses for cannabis.
Gives me
And they
chills.
know that it's an herb, but in fact, cannabis is a superfood. It's a vegetable. And it has a tremendous sequestering property. So it can remove metals and toxins from the earth, as well as from the soil, as well as remove carbon from the environment. And most times when you hear about the relationship to cannabis and carbon, you're hearing about the tremendous environmental footprint that it has. But when you're harvesting the plant in its entirety, and then you're taking that plant and using it for something else, it like the production of hempcrete, it does remove the carbon out of the atmosphere. Cannabis has a 4-month cultivation, and 1 acre of cannabis can remove 4.2 tons of carbon from the environment within a year, whereas that same acre of trees can only remove 6.5 tons of carbon from the environment every 10 years. So
I
it
did
can
not know
go
that.
yes, it can go a long, long way. Chernobyl, one of the things that they started doing I'd say about 10 or 15 years ago, is they do these flyovers and they drop cannabis and sunflower seeds. Sunflowers are also a great plant at sequestering toxins out of both the environment and out of the soil. And that has been part of their strategy for bringing down the toxic levels within Chernobyl so that they can actually get into these spaces to do a full cleanup. So its contribution to society and the environment is tremendous. Georgia is uniquely positioned to become a global leader in the production of cannabis because we have, one, such a long growing season. Two, we have the West Coast port on the Atlantic Ocean, and with Savannah River ports, Brunswick River ports, many of the states, actually, we're the largest southeastern hub, fastest growing. Many of the states send their products through Georgia. So we have the ability to ship our products globally, especially in this space, cannabis, to great buyers like China. China is the largest consumers of American produced cannabis products or cannabis THC related products. And they are now looking at their farms and their regulations and considering opportunities to expand their production within their country. So there are missed opportunities when we are extremely conservative to our approaches on how we cultivate and use this product. But I really am going to make a strong push for this because the additional uses that are not being talked about, it has a tremendous upside for our state, and it can be very impactful to helping farmers recover after 2020.
100%. The first Model T Ford was made with 10% hemp plastic in order for Henry to help the farmers.
Yes.
And so everything you said, there's a really important piece where we talk about the carbon footprint that these grows, those are medicine grows. Those are grows where that plant is in a very tight environment. It's clean. It's going to be used as medicine. That takes a lot. And your outdoor grows, which are also medicine, takes a little less. But what you're talking about is the mass production. You don't need the quality of plant that you do for medicine to make a jacket. It's
Right.
different, But this is what commissioners of agriculture should talk about. Saving the earth, using plants to clean it. If we get folks like you, like today Georgia, tomorrow federal, then we've got to get folks voted into office that are thinking about the universe, the earth, and not
Yes.
necessarily just us, although we're very important.
Yes. Agree.
Um, Gosh, we're gonna wind up. It just so everyone knows, Nikita's a mom of 4 with a, you know, amazing husband. I'm sure.
Yes.
They're red, white, and blue in their family, and just, you know, this is the type of folks, the type of movement that politics need. If you're listening, if you're wondering, it's you. Get involved. This pathway of 200 years ago when your family was brought here, and then the movement, that string within is just beautiful. I got the chills like 3 times, which is, pretty good. But where can people find you? How can they support you with your campaign? You may be sitting in Wyoming, but what happens in Georgia affects us all. We're all connected, and these movements matter.
Yes. So, um, before I let you know about me, I really want to bring in a very important call to action, which is women in agriculture, but also women of color, have the hardest challenges of getting elected. Um, Oftentimes, you have great candidates in races, but we cannot raise the money that we need to get there. I ran for House District 104 in 2020 against a 3-term incumbent who happened to sponsor the hate crimes bill in Georgia in 2020.
Okay.
At the height of Black Lives Matter, he raised $1.3 million. We raised $180,000 in that race, and over 90% of that money came within the last 60 days of that campaign. You cannot run quality campaigns with late funding or little funding. And we were just 779 votes shy of winning. Why this matters is because House District 104 was one of 10 seats that was needed by the Democratic Party in order to flip the majority in the Georgia State House, which would have given the Democratic Party leverage and negotiating powers on bills such as voting rights bill, and making sure that Georgia was truly representative of the people. Our story is not just about what we can do for the nation, but it's also about what we can do for the people of Georgia. We've got to remember that. So my name is Nakita Hemingway. My website is nakitahemingway.com. You can find me on Google. Google my name. I won the lottery of names. I'm the only Nakita Hemingway on this earth right now. But I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm here if you just want to have conversations about agriculture, any ideas. If you're a candidate that's running and you're looking for support, I'm here to help and support any way that I can. And more important, I want you to know that I'm only one of many who is fighting for all of it. It's not about partisanship. It's not about politics. It's about how do we create the most amount of good for the most amount of people, and how do we move all of us forward? Because right now, more than anything, our world, our country needs healing. We need leadership that matters, who cares about the people, but also has the intelligence to solve the problems. So thank you for this opportunity.
And the collaborativeness to make it happen.
Yes.
Of course, you're the only Nakita Hemingway. When before I started, I was like, this name it's beautiful. Like it just
Thank you.
looks good too when it's spelled out. I was like, that's
Yeah.
a great name. I can't wait to support you. I'm gonna find you. Please, hear this, get involved at your local level, get, educated on what voter suppression means and why it's so important. All of these things, it's not about red versus blue. It really is just the right people in the right offices in the right places.
Agree.
And what you said about black women getting elected as a white woman, I can tell you this is a real thing. The money is part of this political game, which is ridiculous. So get out and vote. It's free. But it's really difficult for a black woman, and I'm not sure why, Nakita. I really, I'm white. It wasn't easy for me either. In where I live in Utah, it's
Yes.
1% of color, I think, out in the whole state. But even that it's hard as a woman because you can look at the numbers, how history is written. It's been male dominated. Just is what it is. We're not
Yeah.
victims. There's something about it, and that's where I can't put my finger on it either, but nobody's whining. These are true statistical facts. And
Yeah.
we, as citizens of the United States, need to make the effort to make our country more diverse in our leadership. And through that, I bet a bunch of stuff that's happened in the past 5 years never happens again.
I agree.
This is about
Completely agree.
listening. I adore you.
Thank
Vote,
you.
vote,
Me
vote.
too. I mean, you're crushing it in this space. Everything that I've learned about you, your show, and your personal story is just amazing. And you are a true trailblazer and a gift. Thank you so much, Stormy.
Much love. Vote Nakita Hemingway. Support Nakita Hemingway. I'm going to go make a donation. I'll talk to you
Uh,
soon.
okay, thanks, Stormy.
Thanks, you guys.
Take care.
Bye.